specific time slot for that, so I let the question for the next time slot. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, yeah, so now we can take Q's and A's. So if anybody had any questions for the three previous speakers, please step up to the mics. Okay, yeah, please.
My question is for Frank. I'm wondering if, given that most of the customers you identified are content heavy, I wonder if you're seeing any more selectivity in the peering inclinations of the eyeball networks. Are the eyeball networks getting less open to peering now, or are they the same or more open?
Okay, thanks for the question. Yeah, you are right. I made a very generic summarize. In practice, this is more subtle than that. In fact, we have several types of players in France, for instance, that do not peer anymore. Even of the biggest internet exchange in the world, when they are present, they are not doing any public peering at all. They are only doing private peering, paid private peering, and the biggest they become, and the more they want to go inside that. And even if at FranceX we are an internet exchange, so we are not supposed to deal with that, but stay neutral. We also do a lot of reminders saying, okay guys, you may be big, but you have not been all the time the biggest guys. So you may also understand that you are not peering anymore except with guys of the same size as you, but you cannot continue like that. And so we keep this kind of discussion, but on FranceX globally, all the members that are there, they are either open or slightly restrictive, but very slightly. And the ones that are very restrictive, they are not on FranceX. And I wish they are there, but you may dream, you know. And this type of guys, they're just interested in private peering and paid private peering. So my point is to say, okay, with the actual context, they will not come because they don't peer. They just want to take money from smaller players because they consider that smaller players have an advantage to get their content, meanwhile they don't care about the small players, you know. So in that case, this is what I call marketplace. It means that we are not going to tell them you are wrong by doing paid peering. We cannot decide for them. But we say, okay, we know you are only doing private paid peering, but you may do it now on the exchange. And instead of running the config and so on manually, we will set up tools, a nice web portal, and all the players wanted to peer with you will know the price. You will put what is the price for the meg for private peer, and they say, okay, I take 100 meg or I take 1 gig. They click on it, it does configure automatically the VLAN through the exchange, configures the peers. We have now an information system that works quite good, and all the billing is done automatically. So it means that we can automatically charge that and wire the money directly on the account of the guy that want to do that. And this is something we are looking at. So we don't want to change that. We say, okay, it's a pity, but what can we do? We are not running this company anyway. So how can we attract them on the exchange in one way or another?
Yeah, please, if I can have questions, come up to the mic. But I wanted to ask, please come up. I wanted to ask, with show of hands, how many have remote peering at their exchanges? I see one hand, see a couple of hands back there. How many are considering getting remote peering at their exchange point? Okay, so Dr. Newton couldn't persuade you into that direction. And I wanted to hear also, because he mentioned some stuff. He mentioned stuff about security, and he asked for feedback on that. So if anybody has ideas from that, if you can come up to the mic and, yeah, please.
Hello? My name is Mohammed Sarainia. I'm from Morocco. I see in your speech that you talk about improvement of security in peering, internet peering. I ask, my question is, when you choose the person, the network which you want to do a peering, the security did play a main global criterion to peer with another. No, I am not clear.
I'm sorry, I'm not following the question.
I ask you in French, I hope that quand vous faites... Oui. Yes, you have the, when you different network can have a different policy of security, you know, and the material is interoperable between this network. If I ask if we do we want to do peering with another network. If this security policy, we must to dialogue to exchange that.
Okay, let's see if you can hear me. Please raise your hand if you hear me. The translation in English. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? You have to switch on the volume. Can you hear me now? You have to switch on the volume. Can you hear me? Can you hear me or not? So my question is the following. Can you hear me? When we do peering, we choose our partner, the one we want to peer with. We know that each one of us has his own security policy. So when you choose the partner you want to peer with, does security specifications is security a specification that is going to determine the quality of the peering you're going to do with your partner?
Security expert, so you know, my understanding of how this works is second, third hand. When you negotiate peering with another party, whether it be with a physical presence at the exchange point or through a remote peering, the same exact scenario comes up through the negotiations. The parties will have to agree on whether there's going to be authentication on the BGP session, and if so, coordination of passwords, things like that. My assertion was a bit more broad. My assertion was that direct adjacencies from any network is inherently more secure than when there are multiple hops between you and the destination of your traffic. Does that make sense? I'm not sure
Could you go to the mic for the remote participants, please?
Each network has his own policy of security. Yeah, this is big problem when you pass from one network to one policy of security to another.
Yeah, again, I'd have to back off to my previous statement. I'm not a security expert guy.
Yeah. Could you please come, anybody with a question, don't raise your hand, just line up to the mic, please.
I Hannibal Nietzsche from Internet Exchange Point of Nigeria. I just want to add to contribute to the last discussion. Is the end-to-end client that is responsible for their security, not the Internet Exchange Point. But there are some issues where the high bandwidth between the Internet Exchange Point and the client might provide a launching pad for other people to launch a security threat to the other network. Now what happens is that if the IXP is notified, it will check its policies and try and stop those kind of security threat. But by and large, it's not the responsibility of the IXP to provide security. It is for the end-to-end clients. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think that the exchange point operator traditionally has not played an active role in things like handling denial of service attacks or even facilitating the correction of denial of service attacks. I've heard in some cases the exchange point operator would tell the parties involved, look, it's up to you members to decide how to handle all of that traffic. I've also heard the other view that, as you say, security is an end-to-end thing, that the end communicating parties are the ones that are responsible for doing things like encryption and making sure that the authentication system is in place so you know who you're communicating with. At the same time, you know, the commodity internet is the wild, wild west. Anything can happen, and your traffic is intermingled with everybody else's traffic. So on a bad day, if your traffic is important, you want that traffic to be peered. In fact, if Andreas is here, I stole Andreas's line. I love this line. Important traffic is peered. If you care about that traffic, it's peered traffic. It's sent directly to the other party, and there are fewer paths for attacks or side effects to impact your traffic.
Okay, merci. Je m'appelle Coppens.
I'm Coppens. I come from Burundi. My question is to Mr. Franchissimo. I was looking at the site. It has a domain name, .net. So just a question out of curiosity. Why you didn't use the .fr domain name, the local one? And just to add up more clarification, don't you think that the country code top domains have no room in the internet exchange areas?
In fact, we have francex.net. This is our main domain, but we have 12 of them. We have .com, .org, .fr, and France- all the way you may write it. So we have plenty of domains, and all of them have a direct link to francex.net. So we have francex.fr, of course. We have all of them. It's just that when you are in international world, .net does directly mean networks, and it's a common way, I would say, for Internet Exchange to have the .net and, of course, the dot of your country, and we have it. For the second point, of course, all the top-level domains and so should be connected to Internet Exchange, of course, because it's nice to have peers or whatever you want, but do not forget that the very basic DNS request is done by DNS. The very basic Internet request is going through DNS request. And you have to optimize also the DNS. So I always say that when you are running an exchange, you should have the dot from your country, but also the top-level domains, the root or replicates of root servers and so on. And we have all of them on FranceAX. And we have secondary DNS also. We have the .fr directly connected to FranceAX. And also several top-level domains. And of course, you should keep that in mind and not only have operators, carriers, you should have the very basic stuff connected to your exchange to optimize all the requests going through it.
Je suis Yanogos Saïdou.
I'm Yanogos Saidou from the ministry in charge of the digital economy in Burkina Faso. My question is to Mr. Tenka from CICOM. I heard in his presentation that he's working on the implementation of a peering platform in Africa, and if I understood well, he mentioned some difficulties. He talked about regulatory issues. Now, I'm not a technicians of the internet traffic, more in the regulatory and policy side. So I'd like to know what we as policymakers should do or not do in order to promote the implementation of such peering platform in all Africa. That is my question. If you could maybe also give any complimentary answer to this question, that would be very positive.
Yeah, I think in past AFPIF meetings, I think we've discussed the role of the regulator in facilitating growth in exchange point peering. And I think this meeting obviously is no less important to that effect. I think, as we've said in the past and we'll say again now, I think the role of government, either from socio-political or socio-economic or also from the regulatory side of things, is to provide an environment where local operators can freely engage in the deployment of exchange points, can freely engage in the operation of exchange points, open them up so that anybody that wants to peer can come and peer, and also to facilitate easy relations between the borders of their country and the neighboring country that would allow easy connectivity between these two countries, to extend those kinds of connections between those countries. Because for operators like us, the majority of our network is on the marine side. So there's little we can do on the terrestrial side. So that falls between countries and falls between political and regulatory engines between those countries to make those things happen. So implementing and following through on policies that facilitate positively those kinds of results is what would be my advice to regulators and to information or communications ministries or any ICT initiatives that are taking place in your own economy and your neighboring economies. Use those platforms to allow the operators to have the room to maneuver to improve internet access, internet services within their own countries.
Michuki Mwangi from the Internet Society. I think my question tends to follow what has just been previously asked, but more redirecting the question back to the government and the regulators who are in the room. Do you think remote peering is going to be the key to interconnection in Africa? And by and large, one of the reason I'm asking this is because for any operator to go and peer in another country, there are requirements you either be required to take up a license with the regulator just for being present in that country. So my question is, do we see this as an opportunity to extend peering across borders? And will there be regulatory challenges if we choose to take up remote peering to an extent that is beyond the national borders to cross borders in Africa? So I'd like to hear what some of the regulators in the room think about that.
Can we have a regulator go up to the mic and answer? Okay, see Vincent from the Kenyan regulator going up.
Thank you for the question, Michuki. And Speaker, my name is Vincent Gundi. I work for the Kenyan regulator, which is the Communications Commission of Kenya. And what I'd like to mention is that, at least for the Kenyan approach, is that we've changed the way we do regulation. We are moving from being a policing entity to more of a facilitator. And we have realized that to be an efficient and effective ICT regulator, you must go with the trends. And the trend is we're looking at what industry is doing and saying, you know what, we must regulate in one or another, because we can't leave it really, really open, because the minute you start selling a service to a consumer, the ICT regulator must step in to make sure that the service is of quality and that the obligations of the service provider to the subscribers are being met. But the approach that you have taken towards regulation is that of facilitation. So what happens is that we look at what industry is doing, we understand the needs of the industry, who are the innovators, who are the people who do the business, who are the people who provide services to the end users, and then develop frameworks in a collaborative way. Public participation, together with stakeholders, come up with standards and measures and regulations that will actually benefit and spur growth in the ICT sector. So yes, the answer is yes, but we also know that we also have to have openness with responsibility, because as a government, the government role is to ensure the public interest is met. So what will happen is that we will ensure that that is done by working together with the industry to come up with sound framework that will not stifle the development of the industry. Thank you.
Vincent, maybe while I still have you, before you disappear, I think particular also maybe to extend Michuki's question is remote peering. How have you seen this maybe stretch the concept from a regulator point of view?
I don't have answers for that right now, but what I'll say is that our approach is not service-oriented. Our approach is not technology-oriented. Our approach to regulation is technology neutral. So whatever comes from the industry, for example, I've learned about remote peering today, and that's one of the reasons why the regulator is sending me to come to Casablanca to participate in these meetings. So we need to sit down together again with industry. It's not something that's going to be left to the regulators alone. We'll sit down with the industry and see how best to approach it. Is licensing foreign entities becoming a bottleneck to achieving new technology developments? If the answer is yes, then the question will be, is it necessary? And if it's necessary, what's the best approach? What's the best framework to adopt so that we can actually, both parties can achieve their objectives? So it's not really an issue of the regulator per se, but everybody has a responsibility. And that's the approach that the Kenyan regulator has taken. I can tell you for sure. Thank you.
Any other questions for any other speakers? Yes, please, go to the mic, please. Yes, sir? Yes, I see you in the back. Yes, thank you, Machu.
Bonjour.
Good morning. I shall speak in French. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for this very interesting day. I just would like to make one comment. I've just seen this document, the Paying Internet in English, in this English version. Don't you think we should have had a French version of that document so that all French speakers be able to also understand what is Internet peering? As we all know, Internet has now a very important place in the world of business, in the world of marketing. So now we are at the second edition, and it would have been useful, I think, to have such a document translated into French. Thank you.
I'll ask Chucky to answer that, because I know ISOC produces publications in English, French, and all other languages. So are there publications about peering in French here?
Thank you very much, and that's a very good question. I'd like to say that this, in fact, to us as ISOC is the first, what we wanted to call French AFPIF. French in that a lot of the materials, if you look at the banners, you will find that everything we have is bilingual, both English and French. The website for the AFPIF is also in English and French, and what we have no control over is the materials or the presenters, because the presenters can only present in the language that they are comfortable in. So that's why we try and provide translation at the meeting to make sure that there is translation. But we do try and provide all the materials that we have in advance to be translated in English and French. So what you will find is that the AFPIF site also has a French site, so you can visit the French version of the site. And also we do have a lot of materials that are already in French available on the ISOC website on peering. So when you go to the ISOC peering, ISOC website and look for anything to do peering or AFPIF, you will find both English and French and all the publications that we've done in the recent past. So we are trying to be very bilingual to try and bridge that gap, and we hope we'll keep improving. So if you find areas that we need to improve on, please let us know. We will try and improve as well. Thank you.
Machuki, you've got one other one.
Oh, yeah, yes, I forgot one more. So the Dr. Peering playbook, we are working with Dr. Peering and I think Leon IX to actually have it translated into French, so that hopefully by the next, we had hoped that by this AFPIF we'll have French copies to actually give out, but we were not able to do that in the time that we had available. But we do promise that by the next AFPIF we will be able to give you Dr. Peering playbooks in French as well. So, yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, in that case, I'd like to give a round of applause to all the speakers on the panel. And we'll be breaking for